When we think of the Holocaust, certain names dominate our memory. Auschwitz, Dachau, Treblinka, they've become symbols of unimaginable horror. But history has a way of burying some truths, and just 56 miles north of Berlin lies a camp that remains largely forgotten. A camp built not for soldiers, not for men, but for women. A place where over 130,000 women were imprisoned, thousands perishing in silence. Their stories rarely told. This is the story of Ravensbrück, Hitler's forgotten concentration camp. A prison designed to strip women not only of their freedom, but of their identity, their dignity, and for many their lives. Stay with us, because what happened here is not just another story of the war. It's one of the darkest, least remembered chapters of human cruelty. The birth of a women's camp. In 1938, Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS and one of Hitler's most powerful followers, conceived of a different kind of concentration camp. Unlike Dachau or Sachsenhausen, which held male political opponents and prisoners of war, Himmler wanted a camp built exclusively for women. The women targeted were labeled as deviants, a chillingly broad and vague category. They included prostitutes, communists, Jehovah's Witnesses, so-called asocials, and of course, Jewish women. To the Nazis, they were impurities, to be punished and re-educated. The location Himmler chose was idyllic near the small German village of Ravensbrück, beside a serene lake and thick forests. To visitors, it looked like nature's retreat. To the SS, it was the perfect hiding place for cruelty, remote enough to be invisible, yet close enough to Berlin for efficient transport of prisoners. Construction began in November 1938. Male prisoners from Sachsenhausen were forced to build it, erecting wooden barracks, barbed wire fences, and tall watchtowers. By May 1939, the first 867 female prisoners arrived, mostly German, some Austrian. None knew their fate. From the moment they stepped through the iron gate, life became terror, arrival and dehumanization. The first hours were designed to break them. Prisoners were forced into formation, dogs snapping, guards shouting, SS women wielding whips. Then came the intake procedure. Stripping naked before strangers, shaved heads, bodies searched in the most humiliating ways. Each woman was given a simple dress, one metal bowl, no underwear, no shoes, no possessions, wedding rings, photographs, even scraps of cloth from home were confiscated. From that moment forward, they were not mothers, daughters, or wives. They were numbers. Days began at 3:20 a.m. with a piercing siren. Roll call dragged 4 hours. Women forced to stand in snow or under blazing sun. Inside the barracks, 200 women crammed into spaces built for half that number. Hygiene collapsed. Diseases flourished. Food rations were meager, thin soup, scraps of bread. Most women worked 12-hour shifts of hard labor. Even when ill, those who collapsed were beaten or dragged away. For the children, conditions were worse. Some arrived with mothers. Others were born in camp. Many disappeared starved, neglected, or taken to their deaths. Ravensbrück was not a camp of quick extermination. It was a camp of slow destruction, designed to grind women down day by day, breath by breath. The female guards. One of Ravensbrück's most disturbing features was its female guards. Over 150 served there throughout the war. Survivors called them the Black Crows. They were not monsters from birth. Many were secretaries, factory workers, housewives. They joined for good pay and food luxuries during wartime. But within weeks of wearing the uniform, many became cruel, sadistic, violent. Some names became infamous. Dorothea Binz, who beat prisoners to death. Maria Mandel later moved to Auschwitz, overseeing selections for gas chambers. Irma Gries, chillingly nicknamed the hyena, who used her dog to terrorize women. Why? Some say it was fear of punishment. Others lust for power, or perhaps belief in Nazi ideology, which painted prisoners as subhuman. Whatever the reason, survivors remembered them not just as guards, but as tormentors. Forced labor and Siemens. Beside the camp stood the Siemens factory, one of Germany's industrial giants. Here, Women manufactured weapons parts, radios, even rocket components, working 12-hour shifts under brutal conditions. Siemens profited. The SS profited. The women suffered. Others were forced into Nazi camp brothels. Rewards for male prisoners elsewhere. For those women, survival was rare, but even forced labor was not the darkest fate awaiting Ravensbrück's prisoners. The medical experiments. In 1942, Ravensbrück became a site of Nazi medical experiments. SS doctor Karl Gebhard Himmler's personal physician used healthy women as human lab animals. 86 women, mostly young Polish political prisoners, were chosen. Fellow inmates nicknamed them the rabbits because they were treated like laboratory animals. Doctors cut into their legs, severed nerves, fractured bones. They inserted glass, splinters, dirt into open wounds to simulate battlefield injuries, then injected bacteria to create infection. No anesthesia, no pain relief, no mercy. Some women died of infection. Others were executed afterward to hide evidence. Survivors lived with mutilated bodies, unable to walk, forever scarred, and yet acts of defiance shone through. Prisoners secretly hid some of the rabbits, swapped their IDs, disguised them, risking their own lives to keep them alive. Imagine this: someone breaking your bones, shoving glass into your flesh only to see how long you survive. That was Ravensbrück's medicine. The Kinderzimmer, the children's room. By 1944, Ravensbrück overflowed with prisoners. Pregnant women arrived in increasing numbers. At first, pregnancies were ended by force. Later, the Nazis allowed births, but not survival. This policy birthed the Kinderzimmer, the children's room. It sounds harmless. It was hell. Dozens of newborns placed in a bare, freezing room. No food, no blankets, no medical care. Mothers, starving themselves, could not produce milk. Guards ignored their cries. Most infants died within days or weeks, gaunt, skeletal, their cries fading to silence. For survivors, the Kinderzimmer was often described as the single most horrifying part of the camp. Watching babies starve to death while powerless to help was a cruelty beyond comprehension. The gas chamber. By 1945, the wall was collapsing for the Nazis. The Soviets advanced from the east. In Ravensbrück, the SS turned to mass killing. A small gas chamber was built, disguised as a simple hut near the crematorium. In just 3 months, from January to April 1945, over 6,000 people were gassed. Women too weak to work, children, the elderly herded inside, told they were showering, and then murdered with Zyklon B. Their bodies were burned just steps away. Why so late? Because the SS wanted no witnesses, no survivors left to tell what happened in Ravensbrück. Resistance in the shadows. Even in darkness, resistance lived. Women held secret lessons, teaching languages, mathematics, poetry. They sabotaged Siemens parts, quietly damaging weapons. They wrote letters in invisible ink made from urine smuggled to the outside world, exposing the experiments. And they created dolls, bracelets, tiny keepsakes sewn from scraps. These were not toys. They were proof that they were still human. Liberation and silence. In April 1945, the Red Army reached Ravensbrück. Of 130,000 women who had passed through its gates, fewer than 3,500 remained alive. There was no triumphant liberation footage, no iconic photographs. Ravensbrück disappeared into silence. For many women, freedom brought new trauma. Some were assaulted by their liberators. Others returned home to find families gone or societies unwilling to hear their stories. The world preferred to look away. Memory and legacy. Ravensbrück was not the largest camp. It had no sprawling gas chambers like Auschwitz, but it was unique because it was built to break women. Here, mothers were separated from children, daughters from families. Here, women endured starvation, labor, mutilation, and humiliation not as soldiers, but as civilians deemed unworthy of life. And yet they resisted, they remembered, they survived. Today, Ravensbrück is often overshadowed in Holocaust memory, but forgetting it means forgetting the women who lived and died there. History is not just what we choose to remember, it's also what we risk forgetting, and Ravensbrück must never be forgotten.